The velvet glove is on, but the fist is still clenched underneath. Secretary of State Marco Rubio just delivered a message to Europe that changes everything about the Western alliance. Here's what you need to know. Today, we're talking about a speech that's sending shockwaves through European capitals. Marco Rubio, America's top diplomat, just addressed the Munich Security Conference, and while his words were wrapped in friendlier language than we've heard before, the underlying message to Europe was crystal clear. Let's break down exactly what happened, why it matters, and what this means for the future of the Western Alliance. So here's the scene: Munich Security Conference, Saturday. This is one of the biggest annual gatherings of world leaders, defense ministers, and diplomacy heavyweights. It's where the future of global security gets debated. Marco Rubio takes the stage, and immediately, the tone is different from what Europeans have come to expect from the Trump administration. He talks about shared history. He calls America a child of Europe. He says the fates of the two continents are intertwined. The audience applauds twice. That might not sound like much, but trust me, in diplomatic circles, that's significant. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite the warm words, Rubio's core message didn't change at all. He told Europe in no uncertain terms, "We want you as allies, but you need to step up. You need to defend yourselves. You need to share our values. And if you don't, we're prepared to do this alone. We want allies who can defend themselves so that no adversary will ever be tempted to test our collective strength. Europe, it's time to carry your own weight." He went on, "We in America have no interest in being polite and orderly caretakers of the West's managed decline." That line? That's a shot across the bow. Rubio is basically saying, we're not here to watch the West slowly fade into irrelevance. Either we revitalize this partnership together, or we move on without you. Now, to understand why this speech is getting so much attention, we need to rewind exactly 1 year. February 2024. Same conference, same podium, but this time it's Vice President JD Vance delivering the message. And let me tell you, European leaders were not happy with what they heard. Vance went hard. He told European leaders that the biggest threat to their security wasn't Russia or China. It was coming from within. He basically criticized European culture and values, and the whole thing came across as, let's just say, not diplomatic. The audience sat there stone-faced. It was awkward, and it left a bitter taste that lingered for months. So when Rubio showed up this year, European officials were bracing for round 2. They were expecting more harsh rhetoric, more finger-pointing, more of the same. Instead, Rubio brought the velvet glove. But, and this is crucial, the fist was still underneath. The Trump administration's stance hasn't changed. Only the packaging has. So why are European leaders so on edge right now? Well, over the past year, President Trump has made it abundantly clear that he's not interested in business as usual. He's repeatedly criticized European countries for not spending enough on their own defense. NATO has a guideline that member countries should spend at least 2% of their GDP on defense. Many European nations have failed to meet that target for years, relying heavily on the United States to pick up the slack. Trump's been vocal about this. He said, essentially, why should American taxpayers foot the bill for Europe's security when they won't do it themselves? But it's not just about defense spending. Trump has also threatened retaliatory tariffs on European goods, made aggressive moves toward acquiring Greenland, which is a Danish territory, pulled back on international aid. All of this has left European leaders questioning whether the United States is serious about maintaining its decades-long partnership with Europe, or if it's preparing to pivot away entirely. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz summed up the mood perfectly when he said on Friday, just before Rubio's speech, "A divide has opened up between Europe and the United States. The United States' claim to leadership has been challenged and possibly lost." That's a pretty stark statement from one of Europe's most powerful leaders. Here's the thing. Both sides actually agree on one major point. The old international order, the post-World War II system of cooperation and American leadership, is over. Rubio acknowledged this himself. On Thursday, just before heading to Munich, he told reporters, "The old world is gone, frankly. We live in a new era in geopolitics." And he's not wrong. The world today looks nothing like it did in 1945 or even in 1990. We're dealing with rising powers like China, resurgent threats like Russia, new technologies, economic shifts, and a completely different global landscape. The question isn't whether the old system needs to change. Everyone agrees it does. The question is, what comes next? The Trump administration's answer is clear. A system where America's allies pull their own weight, where Europe takes primary responsibility for its own defense, where shared values aren't just nice words in a speech, but actual policy commitments. In Rubio's words, "While we are prepared, if necessary, to do this alone, it is our preference and it is our hope to do this together with you, our friends here in Europe." That's the choice being offered. Reform together or watch America go it alone. So let's talk about the strategy here, because it's actually pretty fascinating. Rubio's speech was deliberate. It was calculated. It was designed to reassure Europe just enough while still keeping the pressure on. He used phrases like, "We belong together," and "Our fates are intertwined." He praised Europe's culture and heritage. He emphasized the importance of the transatlantic partnership. This is the velvet glove, the softer approach, the diplomatic language, the reassurance. But underneath, the fist is still there, and it's still clenched. The core demands haven't changed. Increase defense spending. Take responsibility for your own security. Share America's values and priorities. Reform the international system. And if Europe doesn't comply, the message is clear. America will move forward without you. Rubio even admitted that the U.S. can be direct and urgent in our council, which is diplomatic speak for, "We know we're pushing you hard, and we're not going to stop." Interestingly, JD Vance praised Rubio's speech, writing on social media, "This is a great speech, worth watching the whole thing." Coming from Vance, who took a much harsher tone last year, that's telling. It suggests that the Trump administration sees Rubio's approach as the right balance. Firm on substance, softer on style. Okay, so why should you care about a speech at a security conference in Germany? Because this isn't just about diplomacy or defense budgets. This is about the future of the Western Alliance, the partnership between the United States and Europe that has shaped global politics for nearly 80 years. That alliance has prevented World War III through NATO, spread democracy and human rights, created the wealthiest and most stable region in human history, stood as a bulwark against authoritarian regimes. If that alliance fractures, the consequences would be enormous. It would mean a weaker, more divided West at exactly the moment when authoritarian powers like China and Russia are challenging the democratic world order. It would mean less security for Europe, which could embolden adversaries to test boundaries. It would mean a fundamental reshaping of global power dynamics. So when Rubio stands up in Munich and delivers this message, he's not just talking about defense spending. He's talking about the future of the world order. And that's why European leaders are paying such close attention. So where do we go from here? The ball is firmly in Europe's court. The Trump administration has laid out its expectations clearly. More defense spending, greater self-reliance, shared values and priorities, systemic reform. European leaders now have to decide. Do they meet these demands? Do they push back? Do they try to negotiate a middle ground? Some European countries are already moving in the direction Trump wants. Poland, for example, has significantly increased its defense spending. The Baltic states have long been above the NATO 2% threshold because they face direct threats from Russia. But other major players, Germany, France, Italy, have been slower to act. And there's real political resistance in many European countries to massive increases in military spending, especially when their populations are dealing with economic pressures and social challenges. The question is whether Trump's approach will encourage Europe to reform, or whether it will push the allies further apart. And honestly, could go either way. Look, here's the bottom line. Marco Rubio delivered a friendlier message than Europe has heard from the Trump administration in a while. But the substance hasn't changed. The demands are the same. The pressure is still on. America is telling Europe, we want to be partners, but not on the old terms. You need to step up. You need to change. And if you don't, we're prepared to go it alone. It's a high-stakes game of diplomatic poker, and the future of the Western alliance hangs in the balance. Whether this approach strengthens the partnership or fractures it. That's the question everyone is asking, and honestly, we won't know the answer for months or even years. What's clear is this: the old world is gone. A new era has arrived, and both sides are still figuring out what that means. Alright, that's the story. What do you think? Is Trump's tough love approach the right strategy for strengthening the alliance? Or is it pushing America's closest allies away? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I actually read them and I want to hear what you think. If you found this breakdown helpful, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.